I like Kyzir White a lot. To me, he can finally do something they haven't been able to do as of a linebacker, run with a tight end, run with a slot guy if he has to. Could they go back to back to back at what? At
wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
In the first round of the draft.
They could. I doubt it. I think they're going to make a trade. I wouldn't be.
You've got Jody McDonald and John McMullen here with Young Birds 365. We've got, I guess, a West Virginia fan. He's repping some colors there with his choice of wardrobe. Mike Gill, did we just get you out of bed, Gill? Is that a problem here for you?
No, man, I was in Florida. I just got back from vacation.
Yeah, everybody's in Florida.
Have some
I'm
good color.
jealous,
I give you that.
Yeah.
I live down the shore, Jody. We always have color down here.
Yeah, good. I thought a BS flag on that. There was friggin' snow down the shore yesterday.
I know.
Like on my house. If I had to go out last night, I would have had to use a scraper on my car. It's friggin' almost April. What the hell?
Saturday, I was on a catamaran boat out in the Gulf of Mexico. And Sunday, when I woke up, it was
snowing.
something
in my eye. Hold on. Let me.
By the way, I'm not a fan. I actually made it through West Virginia. That's an accomplishment. I got through and graduated.
Yeah. Very good.
Now, did Kyzir White graduate? I don't know if he did, or Kevin, or whatever.
I know Kevin. I don't think Kevin did. Kaiser may have. I don't know. He played in that wonky 3-3-5 scheme. I can tell you that much, though.
Yeah.
He was playing in that weird 3-3-5 defense, which I think actually will help him out.
It helped him. Yeah, it helped him. It helped him in the transition to linebacker. So you're a West Virginia guy. Give us a Kyzir White scouting report. This is a better line. The Eagles have been going through this cycle of bringing in, the Paul Warlows of the world, the Corey Nelsons. Last year it was Eric Wilson. This is a little bit of an upgrade, but it's an undersized kid, sort of that modern NFL linebackers, really a pumped up safety, as you mentioned, Mike. Can it work? Is that what everybody needs in today's NFL?
Well, I like Kyzir White a lot. To me, he can finally do something they haven't been able to do as of a linebacker, run with a tight end, run with a slot guy if he has to. That has been something they have been completely. Now, Taylor is a good athlete, but he can't cover anybody.
Yeah.
White is an athlete who can cover. So that's the one thing. Now, is he going to be able to stick his nose in there? He made 144 tackles last year, but are they getting in there and making those tackles between the tackles? Probably not as well as, say, Alex Singleton would, but how many times did that happen throughout the course of a game where you're getting, run on like that in today's game? Who knows? To me, the interesting part about this is, do they play Taylor and White together and have two athletes on the field? Do they use Edwards and White together? Because you're typically running only two linebackers. Or, Jody, do they actually draft a guy and play those two guys?
No,
that's not happening.
No.
I'm all for it, but with the signing of White, that told me chances of the Eagles taking a linebacker in the first round, completely out the window. That one is done and gone, not happening now. And I know what Johnny's going to say. Oh, Edwards is going to be on the field. Edwards had a really good season for them last year. It was week 6, week 7. I said, John, Howie Roseman loves to do the extension thing. Why don't they do an extension with Edwards? And 2 weeks later, they did an extension with Edwards. So, no, I
and
think
by the way, we were talking about it yesterday, so I want to throw this in real quick because I went back because I forgot and I looked at it. Essentially what they did, TJ was going to be a restricted free agent because he was undrafted. They gave him the second round tender, essentially, early. So that kind of tells you, I was just talking about contracts as Son Reddick before you came on, Mike. They tell you all you need to know about what they plan for the player. And they gave him a second round tender, which is rare in today's NFL with restricted guys. That's pretty good. TJ Edwards played pretty well last season.
Oh, I agree. I thought Edwards finally gave them a guy, and I think he's actually getting better. I think he's getting better in coverage. He was abysmal the year before. as the year went on last year, you got a little bit. I mean, it's weird that we're talking about linebackers and coverage comes up first. It's almost like we talk NBA. Well, can the guy shoot the three? It's as if that's the only thing they do. Edwards is actually pretty good against the run. The question is, how much are you going to need him in that role? Who knows in today's game? It seems like it's evolving. And that's my point on the linebacker with it sounds like Roseman is having these like evolving moments of like, hey, we've got to get more targets for the wide receiver. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. And it's like you're leaving the door open to do something that you normally wouldn't do. And like I wouldn't be shocked, guys, if they took Lloyd if he was still on the board and they had 3 picks. Now, if they trade one, that's out the window. But if it's the third of 3 picks and that linebacker is still there, now you've got Lloyd and White starting, and your 2 starting linebackers from a year ago are now your reserves.
Well, then I'm going to ask you the same question. John and I just were debating this a little before you came on. And you got to put some trust in Jonathan Gannon, but in your prototypical defense, and Gannon hopefully is open to change and do things slightly differently than just the 1 year. That's all we got is 1 year of judging Jonathan Gannon. Well, is Hassan White going to play linebacker? If he is a Sam
Hold on. You said Hassan White. Do you mean Hassan Reddick?
Hassan Reddick. My bad. I combined 2 guys together. My bad. Right. Hassan Reddick. If he's playing linebacker and they just gave White the money they gave him and we're singing the praises of Edwards, where is that number 1 draft pick linebacker going to play? Unless you tell me that Reddick is going to be a down defensive lineman, which if he is, that's perfectly fine with me. I think he can actually stand up to it, even though he's a little undersized. But then why the hell did they bring back Derek Barnett? If you're going to pencil, because he's going to be on the field 90% of the time, Reddick. What role is he going to play? What position he's going to play since he's their biggest free agent or acquisition this offseason?
Oh, I think Reddick's going to do both. I think he'll be all over the place. I think you saw last year Gannon throw a lot of 5 looks up front, and with with the 2 linebackers, you can have him on the field and kind of move him, stand up on one side, down on the other. I actually don't mind. I'm not a Barnett fan at all, but I don't mind it. The fact that his number didn't come out kind of says they got him at the price where we could play you 20 snaps a game. I think it's kind of insurance for Brandon Graham. Who knows what's going to happen with him? He, to me, is like almost the 5th guy in the rotation now. Like, if we can get you 20 snaps and you can just go all out for the quarterback, have at it. So I don't mind Barnett at that price. Now, if they paid him real money to come back, then I'm scratching my head saying, are you planning on starting? But I think you got Sweat and Reddick and Graham. I even think Milton Williams will get more snaps than him at this point. And you'll see Barnett as a 20-snap situational pass rusher, which he might be pretty good in that role. I mean, just tell him to go get the quarterback. Just don't go off sides for God's sake. Or, or don't hit him late. But so at that price, it also, and I'll throw this to you guys, you bring Barnett in. So now you have a guy that, is serviceable. To me, it heightens the possibility of taking a guy like Ojabo and saying, we don't need to play him for a year.
Yeah. And especially if he falls to the 2nd round. I mean, then it's really, in play. If you can get a talent like that, and they tried it before with Sidney Jones, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that would be a great plan, to be honest. And that's I mentioned that same thing, like insurance policy. If he's an insurance policy, I love the signing. If he's playing 20 to 30% of the snaps, I'd love the signing. Now, Jody's concerned he's going to play a lot. And I'm with Jody. If he plays a lot, I don't like the signing.
Agreed.
But I don't think, so that's the disconnect. I don't think he's going to play a lot. I'm with you. I don't think he's getting paid a lot. And when you readjust your filter and look at it through that lens, that's a pretty good player. That's a good depth player.
Yeah, I would agree in the fact that, to me, he's a 4th or 5th rotational guy getting half the snaps, if not more, or less than half the snaps that he got the first couple of years. And And I would imagine, I mean, after the whole, it's always that freaking guy, we remember seeing Nick Sirianni. It's always him.
Yeah.
Again, like they had to have some say, hey, we're okay bringing him back. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Nick was just down and talking this morning in West Palm Beach, and he said,
I wasn't awake for that.
Yeah. What a high football IQ, Derek Barnett. Jody's going to love that.
I got a question.
IQ.
I got a question for both you guys, since you both kind of bought into this potential scenario. Eagles will get their pass rusher. He can be a red shirt guy, and how he specifically said you don't want to use top 20 picks on red shirt guys. You want guys who can play. But if you're going to take him in the second round, you can look at him as a red shirt guy. David Njoku's going to hold to the 51st pick in the draft?
No.
Because that's where the Eagles pick.
I don't think so, but I said if he does, but you never know how people are going to do the medical thing. It's, somebody might take him in the first round if they love the player.
Well, he was like a mid-round guy to begin with. How much does the Achilles injury move you? I mean, does that slide you 3-4 picks? Do you stay where you were, or does that move you 10? I mean, Sidney Jones, if you go back to that, he was going to be a top 15 pick probably, and he ended up falling to this. I think the Eagles picked him 50 first.
I think he was more 30 something. I'd have to look it up, but he fell significantly. Obviously, the kid, the linebacker Dallas took is another example. He was going to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah,
Jalen Smith. Yeah, and he tumbled into the second round. So it happens. It happens to even higher regarded players than David Ojabo.
Sidney was 43, by the way.
Yeah. If you now, Jody said, is he going to last to 51? I would say probably not, but you never know. You never know. And if he does, if I'm the Eagles, I'd think seriously about it. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think, Jody, this prevents them from taking a defensive pass or an edge rusher or a defensive lineman with one of those picks at all. You?
Here's my fear. They're sitting there. Howie Roseman made the speech he made yesterday. We need guys who can step right in, but we can't afford to redshirt guys when you've got top 20 picks. Which is a bigger need for him right now? Defensive end or starting cornerback?
Well, definitively the starting cornerback, yes.
Correct. Which is a bigger need? A partial situational substitution guy at defensive end or starting safety?
A starting safety, but now
which is a bigger need? Which is a bigger need? An actual number 2 wide receiver and Quiz Watkins slotted in as the 3 really should be at this point, or a situational substitution defensive pass rusher?
Oh, there's no question. They'll make a trade for a receiver, I think, on draft day. But
no, they haven't yet. As we sit here today, they got bigger needs in defensive end. Why? Because they re-signed Derek Barnett, baby. He's back in the mix.
Well, now that you're now implying that you're believing what Roseman's saying. Now, this is a turn for you, Roseman. Most people say, I don't believe what he's saying. And now all of a sudden we're taking it as gospel. He's out. What time is it that he's talking? He's not awake either. So he's.
What do I always say, Jody? He's not under oath.
Not under oath. Yes, yeah,
right.
I know that.
Especially if they get on the board and Trayvon Walker's there at 15 and they have 2 picks in a row. I can't imagine that they're saying, nah, not interested.
Plus, you also got to look at safety in the draft, Jody, and say, okay, you're starting at 15, 16, 19. Well, Kyle Hamilton had a bad pro day at Notre Dame, evidently. But I can't imagine he would fall to 15. And if he does, the Eagles should leap out of the seat because I think that's the best pure football player in this class. But, and I've said that to you pretty consistently. But you're 15, 16, 19. Let's say Hamilton's not there. I still don't think he's going to be there. Who are you going to take at safety in that position? Dax Hill, the kid from Michigan? I don't. You got to start looking at positional value and where the players are. Now, wide receiver, there might be a bunch of guys viable in that position in the draft, but then you get in the Eagles' history, and do they really want to go back to back to back? Could they go back to back to back, Mike Gill?
Could they go back to back to back at what? At
wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
In the first round of the draft.
They could. I doubt it. I think they're going to make a trade. I wouldn't be surprised if they, wide range. I mean, we've heard some Parker stuff. I wouldn't be. I mean, Miami's probably hemorrhaged draft picks. You can call them and offer them a couple. They have 3/5. Philadelphia does. I don't know what it would take to get Parker, but I can't imagine much more than a 4th or a 5th, right? You've got. I wouldn't be shocked. And I know in Seattle they've been talking a lot about this. If DK Metcalf got traded, and that you have 3 picks on draft day, if it was a draft day deal that you got Metcalf for one of those first rounders, and if you look at the 2 receivers that just got traded, Hill and Adams, Hill got substantially more in return than Adams did, which was kind of crazy. But I would imagine Metcalf would be somewhere around those guys, but I think wide receiver, because I feel like you have to get a guy who has played before in the league. Like, you can't roll out another drafted player, even if the drafted player is now you're going with a second-year kid, a rookie, and Watkins and Rieger are what, 3rd-year guys. Pascal is basically a souped-up version of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So I can't imagine that they draft a 3rd receiver in the 1st round. That would be my walking myself down that path to answer your question and say no.
Mike Gill, I hope you're right, because I'd love to see him go out and get DK Metcalf. But here's the problem with that deal. The Eagles' history of going top flight payment for a wide receiver. Sign him, big buck contract during the Howie Roseman era. That guy would be non-existent. Never done it before. He's never had a top 10 paid wide receiver, acquired a guy. No, you got to extend his contract. And like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill just reset the payment ramifications of wide receivers. If you're going to trade for DK Metcalf, then you got to go ahead and get a contract done with him. That's going to be really expensive.
Well,
and I don't know the Eagles are willing to do that.
And I 1,000% agree with what you're saying. My answer in my head would be, they really, really like Jalen Hurts a lot, but understand he has some limitations and probably realize they don't have to pay him like Aaron Rodgers or any of the top flight quarterbacks, so they can expend that money in another area and keep Hurts and give him more around him because they love what he brings to the team. I don't know.
Well, let's go down that route because I've been talking about it a lot, Mike. You're right. They're not going to have to pay Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers like money, but there's been an explosion at the quarterback position when it comes to salary. It's only going up because the TV revenue kicks in next year, not this year, the new TV deals for the NFL. So the salary cap's going to go up and up and up. And who are the first to enjoy those spoils? The quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts is going to start talking about an extension after next year. Where's it start? 30 million? 35 million?
Wait, per season?
Yes. If he has the same year, Mike Gill, and Jody and I have talked about this a lot. So project this year forward. It's probably not going to happen. The hope is he gets better, not worse. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he stays exactly the same. He puts up the numbers he did. He puts the team to the playoffs, maybe one and done. He's a Pro Bowl alternate. That's $30 million a year, that level of play. That is $30 million a year. That is the most difficult decision the Eagles have looming over them. What do you do with the quarterback position? Because the cost of doing business at that position for above average players is astronomical. Kirk Cousins, see Derek Carr.
Yeah, you saying it like that makes me say there's no possible way, but the Ryan Tannehills of the world and Jimmy Garoppolo. What's Garoppolo make? Bradford's making 18.6. Darnold's in the 18 million range. You got guys like in that range that I think are getting paid ridiculous money. So you got to look at it, in context of all these guys are making $30 million for Jalen Hurts would be preposterous.
John is right. It could happen.
Yeah.
Don't get too out of whack
be in
with
that
it.
range. If he's playing at the same level, that is the decision you have to make, because that's the cost of doing business at that position. Right. Now, I think the Eagles would have rather turn it over at that point and go to a more college mindset. And that brings me into my next question. You got 3 picks. You got the luxuries. People can say what they want about Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral. I don't think Malik Willis is going to be there. Do the Eagles start thinking about that big paycheck coming down the road and saying, well, let's get another guy and guess in case we got to roll this over, and we keep looking and looking and looking until we find the guy that's really worth 35, 40, $50 million.
So you're suggesting drafting a quarterback with one of those picks, which I'm vehemently against. I guess somebody reported yesterday that they're not taking a quarterback in the first round. Who was that? Peter King, I think it was,
King,
right?
Yes. And Peter King and I are on the same. We had our buddy Ed Kratz on yesterday, and he said, don't discount it. It's not an impossibility. They could go there. I think it's pretty much an impossibility.
I know Brian Johnson went and watched Sam Howell, and they took out Pickett to dinner. I guess you got to play the game. I would be pretty shocked, to be honest with you, if they took a quarterback. However, when you gave me the $30 million price tag, I mean, at least it
that would be cheap. That would be cheap, Mike.
Well, here it's such a weird dichotomy. Is this franchise, who has been the gold standard, the quarterback factory, constantly putting the quarterbacks on the hamster wheel of trying to find the next one before the other one's even finished what he's done? You know, it's they have Carson Wentz. We draft a guy in the second round. Now he's running around. They get rid of Wentz. Here's a guy in the second round. You play him for a year or two. Is that your idea of a factory? Just keep pumping them out? Or do you want to find a stable guy to be here for 10 to 12 years? Or do you just not want to pay that guy?
They thought they had that stable guy, and they were woefully wrong about Carson Wentz. All right, John, it's that time. Time for a hypothetical, which I'm going to put to both you and Mike Gill here. If the Eagles, with that first pick, let's say back-to-back 15 and 16, 19 is either traded down or they have traded out and gone to the first-round draft pick next year. First pick, they take a guy like Gold McDuffie. They need a cornerback. Cornerback's the biggest need. They have a big grade on McDuffie. He's there. They take him. Everybody understands it. Everybody signs off on it. The next pick, they've got George Karlaftis, who is the 5th and final of the big 5 edge rushers. He's the only one who's still left on the board, and Eagles have him ranked as the 5th best pass rusher in the draft. Or sitting there is the guy who can replace Jason Kelce, who can be your center for the next decade. You're just talking about they're turning it over too often at quarterback. How about going a decade worth of Kelce at center and a decade worth of Tyler Linderbaum at center? Will the Eagles go pass rusher, or yes, and he's got a red shirt for a minimum of a year, Tyler Linderbaum as the next center of the decade for the Eagles?
Well, that wouldn't shock me if they did. I'm in the camp that says they don't need an offensive lineman this year if they want to play a guy this year, like Roseman said. But you're going to have to pay the piper on the center at some point. But I think they have enough options on the roster. Think about this, guys. If they get to camp healthy, where's Sayamala playing? Is Jack Driscoll going to be the odd man out? Do you move Dickerson back to right guard and play Sayamala back at left guard? Dickerson can play center. Sayamala can play center. They have some options at center, and they have an extra guy right now, and they really like Driscoll. So if Driscoll's the odd man out, well, then if Kelce retires, he comes back in, and then the other guy goes to center. So I think that in that case, they would probably go with the pass rusher.
That's smart thinking. That's not been the Eagles' way of doing things. They like to compile offensive linemen. They love being deep in the trenches. And if
they are pretty deep in the trenches, though.
You and I see it the same, Mike, but I'm just dictating what the Eagles have done before and the way they have, at least it seems that they've handled their drafts. If Linderbaum is the number 1 center and Karlaftis is the number 5 defensive end. It's the trenches, and the Eagles love the trenches, but I think they would lean toward taking the higher-rated player at his position. If they're doing a straight board and they're just ranking them and rating them the way they are, and if they're at number 15, 16, and Linderbaum is the 11th best player on their board, and Karlaftis is the 22nd ranked player on the board, how do you pass up on something like that?
Well, yeah, if you're going off best available, then they're going to go off the board and take best available. They'll take, I guess, the center, if that's how they have them ranked. But don't you think that's going to be something? What are they going to do with Sayamala and Driscoll? Dickerson's going to play, that's for sure. But what happens with those two guys?
Well, one of them's going to get hurt. Right. You know they always do.
Isaac will start at right guard. The thing about people forget about Isaac, he can play anywhere. He played right tackle in his rookie season in Baltimore when they needed him. They love Isaac Sayamalo. Isaac's going to play. He's going to play right guard. They're really happy, I think, with Landon Dickerson at left guard. They don't want to mess up Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata because they were just killing people. So
does that mean that they don't view Dickerson as a center long term now?
Center, the long term, for years, Jeff Stoutland has told me that's Isaac's best position. So that's been the plan in-house for a couple years. They think he's just smart. They think he's now, if you remember going way back, though, the plan for years was when the Eagles drafted Lane Johnson, well, we're going to start him at right tackle, then he's going to move to left tackle when Jason Peters retires. And Jason kept playing and playing and playing and playing and playing. And all of a sudden, Jeff Stoutland showed up one day and said, no, we're not moving Lane because he's so good at right tackle. We're not going to mess with that. So it could always change, but I think you're right. Right now, I think Isaac would be the guy. And Jody, man, I wouldn't go near. I've said this. I wouldn't go near that kid, Linderbaum. And this is for everybody because they think he's the next Jason Kelce around the league. I'm not saying the Eagles.
Right. Everybody does.
Because he's so undersized. Go back to your draft guys, and look at Garrett Bradbury coming out of North Carolina State. They said the exact same thing about him. Undersized, athletic, and he's undersized and really athletic. And he gets beaten up on a daily basis by the big defensive tackles in this league. I think the same thing is going to happen to Linderbaum. I wouldn't go near him. Just because Jason Kelce can do it doesn't mean everybody can do it. And when you're that small, it scares the living you-know-what out of me. And the Eagles are fine at center. I wouldn't mess with that even a little bit. And I think they would be making a mistake. But that's just a personal.
And just let me get on record. I'm not suggesting they should do this. I'm just suggesting what most people are saying about Linderbaum and what teams think about him and where he fits overall in power ratings of all players on the board and like that.
Oh, I know.
Not the Eagles on rating him highly because a lot of teams have him rated pretty damn high. And I'm just handicapping the Eagles' track record of you can never have enough offensive linemen. Not what I would do, not what John McMullen would do, not what Mike Gill would do, but I'm just asking the question as to are the Eagles going to stay in character and think about something like that?
Yeah, it definitely would be in their character, offensive line. I mean, they believe in building up front on both sides of the football. So I'm not discounting it. I would just steer clear. And maybe it's not fair because of Bradbury, but they said the same damn thing. In fact, I remember, it was DJ, and I have a ton of respect for Daniel Jeremiah. And he said Bradbury was the cleanest pick in the draft, cleanest pick. I remember cleanest day. And he's not strong enough. He's not big enough. And he gets beat up. And, Kelce is a rare bird. But
it was also a 6th round pick.
Yeah,
true.
And that's the second part. And you're taking these guys. Bradbury, I think, was 17th overall. Linderbaum might go even higher than that. Boy, that scares me. But again, that's just personal. So we'll wrap this up. Mike Gill, listen to him. South Jersey down the shore, 97.3 ESPN. Drive time. number one in the market, has been for years and years and years. We used to do a segment together that went pretty well as well. So listen to Mike down there. Wrap it up with the wide receiver position, because Nick Sirianni, there's been this sort of from me and others that the Eagles are having trouble recruiting at this position, essentially. They've tried to get in the mix for Allen Robinson. Kind of understandable why he chose the Super Bowl champions. Christian Kirk they were in on. He got overpaid in Jacksonville. They wanted Robert Woods, but Robert Woods wanted to go to Nashville. Calvin Ridley, not so much their fault, but you could see the narrative developing. All different reasons. Did they have a problem recruiting at wide receiver, do you think, Mike, right now with these veteran players?
I don't think it's so much that they have a problem in terms of recruiting them. I think it's their situation that they're in. The quarterback is still an unproven commodity for wide receivers around the league. And if I have a team that's interested in me, that has a guy throwing me the ball that I have more trust in, and we're getting paid the same, I'm going to go to where I think the quarterbacks. I think that's, I don't want to say an indictment on Hurts, but he needs to show. And look, the offense I don't want to say didn't do him any favors. They scaled the offense back to cater what they were good at, running the ball. So if you're a receiver, you're saying they got this good offensive line. They ran the ball really well. They had this quarterback who I don't know enough about. Are they going to get me enough touches? So I think it's a fair assessment by the wide receiver. Now, I think Howie's going out and saying we need to get more targets for our guys. Is that his way of trying to tell the next guy, we want to throw the ball more. We want to get you the ball more if you decide to come here. I don't know who that guy would be, because if you make a trade for a guy, that guy has to come here. I mean, unless it's got a no trade clause. I guess in today's world, you could say, I don't want to go anywhere, and then they might have to compensate for that. But if they make a trade, that person doesn't have a choice. I don't know on the wide receiver free agent market if you're still shopping down that aisle at this point in the game. But sure, their offense has to prove this season if they want to get in the wide receiver game next season, which I hope you don't have to at this point, right? You've drafted a receiver, and if you bring a guy in, you hope to, unless you get a guy like Landry on a 1-year deal. I mean, is that something that could be a possible, could he asked for $20 million.
His numbers got to come down.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, sure. For this offseason, I think it's fair to say, but I don't think that's an indictment on your whole organization long term.
Hi, Mike Gill. Last one for me. It's been almost 14 months since we last heard from the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jeff Lurie jumped on after they moved off Doug Peterson, and in part explained it away as they weren't on the same page about the direction of the Eagles for 2022, that the Eagles were in a transitional year, and Doug Peterson either didn't grasp it or didn't want to grasp it, and that's why they felt they needed to part ways. And transitional year is something we've been discussing for the last 13 months because it was the way the owner described the Philadelphia Eagles going into the next season. You got a good catchphrase word that the owner could float out there this year to describe what the 2022 Eagles are supposed to be?
Feel like they need to find Sam Henke and come up with some sort of slogan, right? I mean, yesterday they said they don't want to go all in. This isn't like an all-in mentality. You don't want to, what did he say? You don't want to take the pillars off the house or something? What was that comment yesterday? He said something to that effect.
Yeah, the pillars. I heard the foundation.
You have a lot of young players on the field. You don't want to take them off the field. So if you're building a house, you don't want to take the pillars off. So they're trying to suppress some of the expectations. I'm wondering if they're in their mind, you had a team that won 9 games last year, went to the playoffs with no expectations. They make the playoffs. And they trying to tell people, don't think we're going to go win the Super Bowl now because we won 9 games last year and we have 3 number 1.
And by the way, Mike, the NFC stinks. The NFC keeps losing players to the AFC. I always tell Jody, I joke, they're going to get teams in Scranton and Reading because they're a AAA affiliate now. So why the hell can't the Eagles make a run in the NFC?
Absolutely. But, we don't want people telling us before the season starts, you're one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl or be in the Super Bowl, because then if you don't, now you're starting to get looked at as you failed this year. They don't want to get looked at as you failed. They want to get looked at as we're continuing to grow.
All right, so continue to grow is what Mike Gill is going with us here.
I'll have to
Mike,
come up with something better. I'll come up with something
feel
better.
free.
Well,
Feel free
grow,
to text
you
John.
just
We'll
go
use
right
it
to
in hour
the
number 2.
flower analogy. You're
There you
still
go.
in the, water,
I hadn't thought about the flower analogy in a while. Well, you got to revisit that one. Mike Gill, always a pleasure. Go West Virginia. Got good color. Go out and get some color there today. You're going to be really nice on the beach. 36 degrees. You go enjoy yourself out there on the beach today, Gill.
So windburn.
Mike Gill here with us on Birds 365. All right. Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. Les Bowen in about 20. We'll talk to him certainly about the Eagles, but about his new gig, NJ.com. Les Bowen back on the regular beat. He'll join us at about 20 on Birds 365.